This is Tom Walk. I'm here with Mark Haim outside of the Peace Nook in Columbia, Missouri. Mark has been kind enough to meet with me. Mark and I go way back. I talked a little bit about him on the walk here, so I won't go over that again. Well, I would like to start by giving Mark the opportunity to, I wasn't sure where to start this. If you want, I know you're probably like me and you don't like talking about yourself. There's so much things to talk about. So I want to give you a chance if you want to say anything about yourself or the Peace Nook.
I'm a full-time activist on climate, peace, justice issues, sustainability issues. I've been involved in this work most of my adult life, and I'm appreciative of the community that has supported PeaceWorks and my work over these many years. I've been full-time with PeaceWorks since 1985, so it's been a minute.
I think I got involved around 1987 or something. We started some early Earth Day, and I recall the buying clubs that we used to have. That's right.
We still are keeping on. We just had Earth Day this past month, and had thousands of people out, a couple hundred booths, all really good.
Hey guys.
Hi. Is that a newer volunteer?
That is a volunteer.
And they
yes.
keep bringing the volunteers. That is so great. It takes young people to keep volunteering to keep this all going.
Yeah.
I want, if I can move on from that. I wasn't sure. Do you want to talk about what the Peace Nook is, or would you rather go into what current activities are?
We can talk about both real quick. Peace Nook is a nonprofit bookstore, fair trade store, and community resource center. We opened the Peace Nook in 1990, and that means we've been operating it for coming up on 32 years now. And most of the people who work there are volunteers. All the proceeds above the cost of operation go into our educational work on sustainability, climate, peace, and justice issues. And you know, it's an important part of PeaceWorks. PeaceWorks, though, is bigger than the Peace Nook. It's a group that does education and advocacy work around those issues. And we started off doing nuclear weapons work, you know, opposing the U.S.-Soviet arms race back in the 80s, and expanded over the years to a multi-issue organization working on the constellation of interconnected issues, because all of these issues really have a common root and also play off on each other. So the fact that we are so addicted to war and militarism means we don't have the resources readily available to make the investments, the very serious investments we need to make in a carbon-free future, a future that is sustainable and climate stable. So there's lots of interconnections there, and much of our work of late has been focused on the climate issue. We've been working to get the City of Columbia's municipal utility, Columbia Water and Light, to go 100% renewable for its electric generation by 2030. That's been a major focus of our outreach efforts. We've been collecting signatures on petitions. Almost 3,000 have signed those petitions. We've been collecting endorsements from organizations and businesses. We went before the City Council a couple weeks ago and turned in over 2,800 names on petitions, and like 55 different organizations or businesses endorsing the idea of 100% by 2030. Part of what we're dealing with is the federal government is doing very little on climate change. They have not pushed through the kind of package that was in the platform that Joe Biden ran on. So we're seeing deadlock in Congress. On the state level, we have a very reactionary governor and state legislature, and as such, they are in a situation where they are basically doing next to nothing that is addressing the climate crisis. So we've taken it to the municipal level and have been reaching out to our city government and also, to a lesser extent, to our county commission, hopefully leading to action.
Here comes the devil.
It does sound like that, doesn't it?
That is nice. There's our interlude. Okay. I can circle back to a couple things.
Sure.
One is I just want to reiterate how important it is to have group actions, like to sign petitions and signatures, because for me, if I'm shopping for solar, I can make it. To me, investing in solar on my own is putting thousands of dollars in to make a statement, while the utility is still going to make their decisions about their development. And even if I paid the extra for the green alternatives at the utility company, they're just collecting extra money, but they still making their plans for their energy development. The best way that I could tell to affect the change is to act as a group, and to show them to use your consumer power as a group and instead of individually. And that's from what my experience is. But I want to circle back to one or two things. And one was this: you've been able to sustain this, and it seems like the piece that you have, and I guess there's volunteers. Well, let me just start over. How do you keep it going so long? What can we share with other activists around the country, or even the world, who want something to sustain, to build something that can last?
Part of what we've done is sort of seen what people are looking for, and in terms of a organization, we've adapted to the issue concerns of the day to a certain extent. I mean, we're still committed to nuclear weapons disarmament, but we recognize that there are other very pressing concerns that are more immediate and more on the minds of our supporters and members at the moment. So we try to do it all, but we give more focus to what people seem to feel is most pressing. So we try to be responsive, as a democratic organization should, to its members and supporters. Beyond that, the store has done something similar. We for a while had a natural food section that was pretty big, but people weren't buying natural foods here. They were going to either the supermarket or one of the natural food stores and doing that. So we downsized that and upsized our fair trade imports, which people are really happy to have access to, and it's consistent with our basic mission. We want to empower people everywhere, including in the developing world, to have control of their own labor, to work in fair labor conditions, to not have child labor or dangerous or environmentally destructive labor. So fair trade makes a lot of sense, and it's very consistent with our values. And if people are going to be buying things, we'd rather they be buying fair trade items, so we offer them at a more affordable price than you would see usually in many gift stores. Our markups are lower, and as such, if you build it, they will come. And I guess people keep coming, and that's good.
That is great. And one more thing I want to circle back on was that we talked about root or kind of intersection or unit problems. I do want to get back on more, if we have when we have time, about current events, but I just want to circle back to this root piece again, because to me a lot of this goes back to our whole system of business. You could call it capitalism or profit,
capitalism, or even more basically, it's a dominance and top-down power over paradigm. That paradigm is based on control and domination and exploitation. And even before capitalism, under feudalism, we had a dominance paradigm. Under the previous archaic civilizations that were based on slave labor, we had domination, exploitation, and control. And some people will refer to that as capitalism, some people will refer to it as patriarchy. I refer to it as a power over top-down system rather than a more egalitarian caring and sharing social order. And what we feel there's a sore need for is outgrowing our need or perceived need to control and dominate others, and to instead figure out how we can care and share and live together cooperatively and harmoniously. And if you figure out that the entire human family are our sisters and brothers, and that we are one people, we can eliminate all this destructive war-making and militarism. There's so much that is squandered in terms of life and limb, and it's not just what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. It's what's going on in Yemen. It's what's going on in Burma. It's what's going on in Somalia, in Mali. You go around the world, and there's one after another conflict that's based upon one group of people trying to control and dominate others. And it's hierarchical structures within our social orders, and it's dominance seeking that powers tend to be hegemonic and try and control and dominate geopolitically a region of the world where they are based and even expand into other regions. And that's just so destructive.
I think a lot of it stems from people's fear and these dominant structures that play on that fear of being afraid that we don't have enough to go around, and that we need to keep those others under control because we can't share with them.
Scarcity is a real thing, but there's plenty to go around if we just learn how to, voluntarily cooperate and share what's there. Our technology is very impressive. It has the ability to produce way more in the way of goods and services than we need, and way more than we can really afford to put into the environment.
We're still not going to consume our way out of our problems. We
No.
still have to be able to talk about population and
Yeah.
consumerism.
Yeah.
But when we come together, if we can, happiness isn't based in consumerism. So if we can get away from that,
Well, that's it. Those painted cakes don't nourish, and people are always desiring something new and something more. And it just, it ends up being a vicious cycle where people get something new, something different, and they lose interest. They want something else that's now trending. And people need to figure out that what satisfies us the most is not the material stuff, but it is above and beyond just having enough to live. It's having connection, it's having community, it's belonging to something bigger than oneself, and it's caring for others that's so satisfying.
I'm finding out on my bike ride that I could do a lot, but if I don't have community and people and kind people around, that I get nowhere. I'd be hungry in the middle of the woods somewhere. So it takes people all over to help each other, and when we can, we have enough to go around to do that. Before we wrap up, if you have a couple more minutes, I just want to know if you want to highlight any current actions.
Well, our allies that we work closely with in Veterans for Peace are getting ready to have Memorial Day observance, and one thing that's happened with Memorial Day is that they have been used as another opportunity to wave flags and reinforce the us versus them paradigm, to reinforce the we're armed to the teeth and we need to be paradigm. And I'm just so appreciative of groups like Veterans for Peace, people who've been there, done it, seen what goes on, and recognize not just the futility of war, but the misery that it causes.
The waste.
The incredible waste of life, limb, and resources, the destruction of cultural sites, and the need to rebuild everything after a war, the use of all these weapons, and then they're going to buy more, and the military-industrial complex thrives and profits, and society as a whole pays.
So you have Memorial Day coming up with Veterans for Peace.
Yes.
Where will that be observed?
Stevens Lake Park on Monday the 30th of May at 12 noon. There'll be a luncheon and speakers and music, and it's free, and all are invited.
Are there any particular? Thank you very much. Are there any particular human rights or environmental causes that the Peace Nook is?
Well, so many of them.
That's right. It's hard to mention.
We would love to see an end to the ceasefire that brings an end to the slaughter in the Ukraine. We would also love to see the U.S. stop backing Saudis and the United Arab Emirates and Yemen.
I'm gonna have to come back. I'm sorry, Mark. I have to come back here. I had to mention racism before we go. And
it's a big part of what we're dealing with right now too. We're dealing with, this mass killing in Buffalo, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. And we're coming up on the 2nd anniversary of George Floyd's murder. I think that's next week. And certainly race is another piece of that top-down dominance paradigm we've talked about. I would also point out that what we're dealing with around bodily autonomy is critical as well. The fact that we see the right to choose or not to choose to have a baby is being eroded, and very likely within a month or so, maybe 2 months, we're going to have the Supreme Court eliminate Roe v. Wade, and Missouri and many other states are going to just outright, eliminate the ability for people to terminate a pregnancy here, and that has to change.
The way to change is democratically, not through tyranny.
Exactly. Yeah, we need democratic input, but right now we're in such a sad situation where one of our two political parties is no longer committed to democracy. In fact, is into undermining democracy. It's a challenging time, that's for sure.
And one final question: is it important to stay in communication and coordinate with other peace communities in other towns?
Sure. We try to do that as much as we can. Much of our work is locally based, though. We do collaborate and cooperate with other groups as it seems appropriate, as it fits into what we have the ability to do and influence. But a lot of what needs to happen is from the grassroots up. We created something last summer called Peace Works Green Team, and we went door to door and signed up hundreds of people to get weekly Green Team news and hopefully act on that news. So, you got to build it from the bottom up, because it's not going to work top down, and it's not happening top down.
No, it's not. But and it's not happening by individual consumer action either. We have to work together. And with that, I'd like to thank Mark Haim so much for taking this time with me. I hope the audio turns out. We'll find out. If not, it's been a personal pleasure for me to talk with you, and I hope I can have a good enough audio and video here to put on YouTube. We'll find out. If I do, it'll be up in the next few days.
Thank you, Tom. I much appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Appreciate what you're doing.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
All right.